I spoke with Justin Trudeau. In fact, he flew to Mar-a-Lago within about 15 seconds after the call ended.
Yeah. It's been a few weeks, and the US president-elect is still trolling Justin Trudeau and saying he wants to make Canada the 51st state. And now, even some Americans are weighing in and saying that they agree this is a good idea. Joining me today to break it all down is Detroit radio host Justin Barclay. I'm Rachel Parker, and this is Rachel and the Republic. Hey everyone, I'm Rachel Parker. Welcome back to Rachel and the Republic. We have Justin Barclay, a Detroit radio host, joining us once again today. Justin, thank you so much for being here. I want to start by asking you right off the hop, what do you as an American and as someone who covers Donald Trump make of his trolling of Canada and of our Prime Minister?
I love it. I first of all, President Trump, this is the art of the deal. And if no one's ever read the book, pick it up, read the book. It's just quintessential Trump. This is the kind of thing that he does, the tariff talks, throwing this stuff out there. And of course, it did exactly what he thought it would do. It got the attention of both Canada and Mexico, and it'll get the attention of other countries very soon. But what he's essentially looking for isn't tariffs. That's not what he really wants. What he wants is cooperation on certain things. What he wants essentially is to reset the temperature, reset the tone, and let people know there's a new sheriff in town. I love Canada. I love our Canadian friends, and here in Michigan, obviously, right here on the border in Detroit. In fact, I broadcast into Ontario, Windsor, and if they allow me, I don't know if there's a way to block me there yet, but we get in. And occasionally we'll get phone calls and things like that. And, so I love it. I love, in fact, Windsor, I know things have changed a little bit, but years ago, when the first time I went there, because I never had, because I didn't grow up in Michigan. I grew up in Indiana originally. I never had been over and across the border, across the Ambassador's beautiful bridge. You can go through the tunnel and you go through and you tell them why you're coming. And sometimes they pull you aside and have a conversation with you. But largely we were going, to visit and to be a part of, occasionally the radio station I worked with at the time would do promotions at these nightclubs there, because I think you only had to be 19 to drink the watered down beer that they had. There's certain beer that they had there that you could only drink certain kinds, and 19-year-olds could drink it. And so we just loved going over there. It was a great time. But part of that whole process, I learned that, like Windsor, people didn't lock their doors. It was so safe. It was like this just, I don't know, kind of idyllic little places. At least that's the way we were told. But things have changed in recent years. And a lot of that has to do with some of the policies and I think some of the things that Trudeau's responsible for. So on one hand, I love to see it because it's the art of the deal. It's what Donald Trump is best known for. It's him setting the tone, getting the leverage set in not just with Canada, but with Mexico and some of these other countries as well. But I also kind of like to see it happen to Justin Trudeau because even though I share his name, I don't share a lot of his ideals and of course, policies, what he's done in the past several years, and particularly what he did during the pandemic and the truckers and jailing pastors and most recently jailing journalists. A lot of this stuff is just, I know it's hard for a lot of folks in Canada to watch too, because we're very similar in our, I think, in our sensibilities and the way we think here at Canada and America as neighbors that we are. I know there are differences, but I think a lot of people look at this stuff and they go, this is scary times. This is wild stuff to watch.
To your point, I think, a lot of Canadians, we've seen a lot of Canadians, especially on the right, sort of cheering Trump on because they're so fed up and they're tired with Justin Trudeau. Not that they actually want to become the 51st state of America. I don't see that happening. I think some Canadians actually would like it to happen, maybe actually think it's on the table. I don't think that's what's going on here. I think, as you said, this is the art of the deal. This is something that Trump is saying because he wants to open up that negotiations. He wants cooperation with the countries. And, to what you were saying, it seems to me like part of the reason that President-elect Donald Trump is leaning into this so much is because it has garnered so much attention and so much publicity, and everyone is talking about it.
I saw a guy tweet or a post on X the other day. A Canadian, I think his name's Sean Newman. I don't know if you know who he is, but I shared that.
I know Sean. Yeah.
I can't stop thinking about this. Trudeau just got owned by Trump. 4 days after Canada was threatened with tariffs, our fearless leader was begging for mercy at Mar-a-Lago. And he said, here's how Trump did more for Canada in 5 minutes than Trudeau has in 9 years. And he kind of outlined some of these different pieces. And it's a great thread. I won't go into all of it, but I thought, well, it's a fascinating conversation. And look in to the mindset of some of the folks inside Canada and what they think about, because they're not being represented. We know what that's like. You get a Biden or, God forbid, we would have had a Harris and even an Obama at times. These people just do not represent our way of thinking and policies at all. And we're so far off the rails. I know you have opposition there, but still, in the media working alongside them create this kind of false, and we've seen how false it was, particularly with this election, the turnout we saw, how many people came out and how really massive the landslide was to mandate what will happen moving forward. But a lot of the people, real life, everyday people, they don't agree with some of this. A lot of it, let's be realistic. A lot of the craziness, the insanity that I know that's really plagued your country, and it's been a part of ours as well. These are leftist policies, crazy policies that are completely detached from reality, that I think that most people just aren't. It's not in touch with the way most people think. I don't know. I'm not an expert on Canada, but I'm an expert on, I guess, America, right? And Michigan. And we're so close. We're so similar, I think, in a lot of ways. I think most people, Canadians, if they're like Americans, just want to go about their lives. They want to be left alone. They want to be able to raise their kids, make a good living, and be able to leave things in Canada a little bit better off for their kids than what they had it. And I think these policies, these crazy, wacky, out of touch policies, are completely detached from reality, and they're completely at odds with the thinking of the average person here in America. I can tell you, I would imagine it's the same in Canada.
So as I said, some Americans are kind of looking at this, at Trump's pitch to make Canada the 51st state and joking along with it. Jesse Waters of Fox News was one of those people. Take a look at what he had to say.
Let's just be clear. We're not going to make Canada the 51st state. We'll make it 51 and 52. You make Western Canada, that'll be Republican. Eastern Canada, that'll be Democrat. So you keep the electoral balance there. So many reasons to make this a state. I think, has the third largest oil reserves in the world.
Oh, a lot.
So that makes us an energy behemoth. It's the most well-educated country in the world, because we need a little help in that department. Talk about mining, agriculture, fishing, AI, tech, real estate, Canada, you name it, they got it. We'll never probably lose another Winter Olympics. We'll have all of their skaters and skiers. Wow. I mean, good luck, Sweden. And they share our cultural heritage. They share our language. It's just a no-brainer. Now, I don't know if Canada is going to go along with it, but there's ways to maybe change their opinion.
Do you want to end it there?
I'll end it there.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea.
The Army's minuscule, but that's fine. We'll pay to protect them as a state. But we're doubling the size of the country, America. Think about it.
He makes some good arguments there. I mean, we basically already rely on your military, so there's nothing new on that front. The bit about, having the 51st and the 52nd state was, I think, an important note, because there are major regional differences. That being said, the division lines might not fall quite so nicely, because BC, which is our our westernmost province on the ocean is quite liberal, so we'd run into some issues there. But you're saying this whole conversation has been started because Trump's tariffs, but also Trump just really wanting cooperation with Canada. Canadian politicians, the Canadian media, everyone's really panicking about this threat of 25% tariffs on all Canadian products entering the US market. So in your opinion, what does Canada actually need to do to avoid these tariffs?
I'm not exactly sure what Trump is looking for, but I think mostly it's get in line. I think that's the overall. America's been a laughingstock for the past 4 years under the failed leadership of a Biden-Harris administration. And I think what he really wants to do is set the tone to let folks know there's a new sheriff in town. We're not going to put up with this anymore. In fact, we're gonna have to make sure that we do some things like lock down the border. And we share a massive border with Canada. And I know that there are some things that are being done right now to control that, but I think he wants a little more cooperation, a little more stepped up help. It's not just immigration. I think that's a big part of what we're seeing happen here. But when we talk about border issues, we talk about national security issues, and we've got fentanyl coming across. And not only do we have folks coming from all over the world, they're flying into places like and just walking across. But that's happening and possible in Canada. In fact, I know some people that are border patrol agents on our border with Canada, and they said that it's ratcheted up. It's got even worse what they see the border crossings and what they see happening in Canada, because they've had to send so much the resources down to the southern border to help and aid and assist down there that now the northern border has been left wide open. And as you know, there are places like the Ambassador Bridge or some of these bridges and tunnels and the new bridge they're building, the Gordie Howe Bridge. But those are like, you have to go through the checkpoint, and it is very serious. I remember coming into Canada, we had guys with us that maybe got in trouble here or there in the States or whatever. And if you had one person that was with you and a group of people that was going through, that person got held back. And I mean, they were very serious about that, and they ought to have. But it needs to be like that throughout the entire border. And there are lots of places where I think you can just walk right over, and it's, there are vulnerabilities. So those things need to make sure that we've got all of that locked down. But even bigger, it's got to have, I think Trump's looking for the full cooperation and the really the full on policy that would ensure that Canada is gonna help us through this, whatever that looks like, and we'll do the same for them. I don't know what else he's looking for. Maybe he's looking with some more trade cooperation. Maybe there's some numbers, some movement that he's looking for there. I'm not exactly sure. I'm not in his head as far as that's concerned, but I don't think, I think Jesse was kind of joking too. I don't think we're really looking at, the two countries merging. But I will say that I do think this is strictly an art of the deal, and it's genius. It's brilliant because everybody reacts in the same way that we're watching. There was I can't remember her name, but she was talking. One of your politicians was talking about how this makes her so nervous, and I thought, well, it ought to make it ought to make you nervous. She said it's not funny, and I said, well, it's funny. To me, it's funny because you're so nervous, and that's why I think it's so funny, because you're seeing these people and politicians. I don't know how it is, Rachel, with you all, but we kind of call it here. It's like Hollywood for ugly people. Politics is like Hollywood for ugly people, and really what that means is a lot of these people are full of it. They're acting, they're actors, and they don't really have. Now they're always acting like they're so serious, and they don't really have, I think, the command of the situations and the subjects and scenarios as much as they ought to. I think they just act their way through it. And there are real consequences, and I think unfortunately they have been successful for many years. I know, at least in the States, and probably similar for you all as well. But they've been successful in this whole dance, this whole masquerade, and finally the mask being ripped off by a guy who's been able to come in and disrupt it all. And I think that's what Americans love about Trump. Maybe that's what some throughout the world like about him, is that he's willing to come in and shake things up and maybe make things better. Maybe it's not just making America great again. Maybe he wants to make Canada great again too.
That's already, quite the movement here. We have Make Canada Great Again hats now. Actually, you might have seen this circulating online, but the Canadian Armed Forces sent out a survey to its members. They wanted to know if any of their members were identifying with extremist groups. And one of the ways that you know if you're an extremist, or if somebody that one of your peers in the military is an extremist, is if they've ever purchased Make Canada Great Again merchandise. Actually, yes, that survey was actually funded by us, the Canadian taxpayers. So things in Canada, as you said, we're all kind of tired of the nonsense and of the extremism, and definitely want to get back to running our own lives and not having our taxpayer dollars wasted. To your point about the nervousness, I think when Trump pulls the stunts, which his trolling Justin Trudeau is talking about making Canada a state, I think when he makes politicians nervous, that's exactly what he's looking to do, because that gives him the upper hand in the bargaining, as you were saying, the art of the deal. Like, if you are able to make the person that you are negotiating with nervous or uncomfortable, you will immediately have the upper hand. And I think that we've got a lot of weak politicians in Canada right now, and I think they've easily ceded him that territory, unfortunately. I just want to go back and play the full clip that we showed at the beginning of Trump talking about how he had a phone call with Justin Trudeau, and Justin Trudeau immediately announced he was going to fly to Mar-a-Lago to meet with him. Take a look at this clip.
So I spoke with Justin Trudeau. In fact, he flew to Mar-a-Lago within about 15 seconds after the call. And he was at Mar-a-Lago. We were having dinner talking about it. I said, you have to close up your borders, because they're coming in the northern border too a lot. Not like the southern border, but they're coming in the Canadian border a lot. And drugs are pouring in. Almost as importantly, drugs are pouring in, maybe more importantly, drugs are pouring in at levels never seen before, 10 times what we had. They're just pouring in. We can't have open borders. And I said to the president of Mexico and to Justin Trudeau, if it doesn't stop, I'm going to put tariffs on your country at about 25%. That's a very substantial tariff.
Mm-hmm.
I think that clip speaks a little bit to your point. Trump basically said jump, and Trudeau's like, how high? And went down to Mar-a-Lago to meet with him. And it was sort of the scandal here in Canada, because how many bedrooms does Mar-a-Lago have? Like well over 100. And Trudeau wasn't invited to stay there for the night. And I guess Trump always invites his visitors to stay for the night. So certainly you could tell that, Trump, not a very big fan of Trudeau. But the one thing that I'm wondering, and I'm specifically wondering this because I'm broadcasting from Alberta, we have the third largest oil reserves in the world, and we do a lot of trade with Canada. A lot of our oil goes down to the States, and we've seen our conservative premier here, Danielle Smith. She's been encouraging the federal Liberal government to work with Donald Trump. And she even announced that she was going to be asking our Alberta RCMP to ramp up security at the border. Do you think that President-elect Donald Trump notices these specific efforts from premiers similar to your governors in the States? And do you think there's any possibility that he would take notice of these efforts and carve out exemptions for some provinces?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I don't know. I don't know what's possible there when it comes to tariffs. I do know some of the people that work on the trade side of those things to try and figure that out. And I'll have to dig into that. I'm not sure if they can do that, but I do know he's paying attention. Those folks would be, I'm sure, high on the list of not only would he be watching what Trudeau does, but he's also watching what maybe the opposition does. He's watching what the governors might do and say, because they want to gauge how effective all these things are within the country. In fact, somebody that I know very well is going to become our ambassador under the Trump administration to Canada. He's from Michigan, His name is Pete Huckstra, and he ran the Michigan GOP, the MIGOP, the Republican Party here. But he was a congressman from where I'm at, my neck of the woods, and going to be an interesting guy. They're going to be watching, I think, very closely how that sentiment is going, because what I think, the other piece of this, what's happening is, and he's very effective at doing this, is sort of pushing people along in a certain way, in a direction that he wants them to go in. I think the world's headed in that direction too, and so he's pushing Canada, he's pushing Mexico, he's pushing Europe, he's pushing all of our allies really to move into this sort of same. I don't want to call it MAGA because not make America great again, but it's this sense that we're all kind of going to push into this, and it's not even just conservative, but it's a direction of which back to return to common sense. We've gotten so far off the rails with, the woke policies, DEI, and all of these things, and it's happening all throughout the world right now, and in places like Canada and England and the UK, Europe, all these places, and it's happening here too. But the pushback here, specifically with immigration, had a great conversation with a guy named Father Calvin Robinson, who's from the UK. He's an Anglican priest, and he's very outspoken, but part of why he's moved here to Michigan, has actually moved here, is to sound the alarm and to warn America of what's coming if we're not careful. And the West is under attack altogether. So we can break it down into countries, Canada and the United States, the UK, but it's the West that's under attack. And so I think part of what we're seeing is, if Trump is effective at handling this immigration crisis, if he's effective doing that, then the UK or Canada may be able to be more effective with those policies in their respect as well. Courage is contagious.
Yes,
Courage is
that's
contagious.
true. That's true. Thank you so much for insight today. That was Justin Barclay, a Detroit radio host. As he said, if you live in the Windsor, Ontario area, you might still be able to get his show on the radio. That is until the CRTC has something to say about it. I'm sure they will nip that in the bud if they can, as they always do. Okay, everyone. I just thought it was actually especially interesting how he, of course, is living in a border city. I'm kind of from a border city from Niagara. I'm not quite from Niagara Falls, but quite close. And he was saying even people that he's spoken to, border agents who work in Detroit, say that they've noticed an uptick in illegal crossings from Canada. So obviously this is something that people on the ground are noticing. All right, everyone, before I let you guys go for today, I just wanted to make a quick announcement. This is the second last week of Rachel in the Republic. That does not mean that we are ending our U.S. coverage. We'll still cover, the trade war and all the other interesting stuff that pops up over the next few weeks. But we are simply going to be folding it under one banner of the Rachel Parker Show. So you'll be getting, in a few weeks' time, probably in the new year, you'll be getting the Rachel Parker Show two times a week. And our American coverage will be folded into that show. So don't fret. You'll still be getting our U.S. politics coverage. All right, everyone, that's all we have time for today. I hope that you enjoy the rest of your week. I will see you on Tuesday on the Rachel Parker Show. God bless.